Alright, stop what you're doing because the new Superman movie, it's finally here. And not only is it real, but it might just be the biggest shakeup in superhero cinema we've seen in years. I finally had the chance to watch it, and trust me, there's a ton to talk about. So if you haven't seen it yet, do yourself a favor, go check it out. Because fans like us, we've been waiting for this moment for a long time. And let's be honest, it was starting to feel like we'd never get another Superman movie. But now here we are, and James Gunn has officially planted his flag in the ground. This isn't just another Superman movie, it's a full-blown reboot of the DC universe. A clean break from Zack Snyder's era into something completely different. Even Rick and Morty got in on the fun recently, cracking jokes about the reboot and the new soups. And from the trailers alone, it was clear that this wasn't going to be anything like Henry Cavill's Man of Steel. Honestly, it doesn't even feel like any version we've seen before, not even the Christopher Reeve classic, Brandon Routh's take, or the TV Superman like Tyler Hoechlin or Tom Welling. But here's where it gets wild. There are some serious Smallville vibes baked into this movie, and yeah, we're getting into that. Now, as for the trailers, let's just say they didn't really do the movie justice. There are a few weak points we'll get into, but overall it works. It feels like James Gunn's DCU is off to a solid start. Oh, and when you do go see it, stay seated. There are multiple post-credit scenes. You don't want to miss any of them. James Gunn has said this is the most comic book movie he's ever made, and after watching it, I agree. Yes, his Suicide Squad and Guardians of the Galaxy movies were packed with comic book references, but this feels like an actual comic book brought to life. Sitting in the theater, it felt like flipping through an old school Silver Age DC comic. Big colors, high stakes, and weirdness turn up to 11. The movie draws a lot of influence from Grant Morrison's Superman stories, and you'll notice a ton of Frank Quitely's designs like the Superman robots teased in the trailers. But what makes it really land? It's not the spectacle, it's the soul. David Corenswet Superman feels incredibly human. This movie dives deep into his inner world, his fears, his doubts, and what actually drives him. For the first time on screen, we really get to feel what makes Clark Kent tick. Sure, he's facing giant threats, think kaiju level chaos, pocket dimensions, magic, all kinds of wild meta-humans. But at its core, the story stays rooted in emotion and relationships. Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult, feels like an actual threat this time around, not just a rich guy with a grudge. He's terrifying in his own genius way. There are points in the film where it really feels like Lex has Superman on the ropes. At its heart, the film is a metaphor for America. It's about an immigrant from Krypton who crash lands in the Midwest and is raised by the kindest parents you can imagine. That upbringing shapes Superman's moral compass. He chooses to believe in humanity even when people like Lex challenge that belief. Lois Lane, played by Rachel Brosnahan, is the perfect counterweight. She challenges Clark's idealism with her pragmatism, constantly pushing him to reflect on what he stands for. Then there's Lex, representing the cynical side of humanity, almost like a caricature of modern billionaires. The dynamic between Superman, Lois and Lex, it's the real emotional engine of the film. The film is structured like a series of vignettes, episodes in Superman's life. We follow him through what feels like a typical week of being Earth's most powerful blue-collar hero. That very first image of Superman putting on his boots to face a giant threat, that perfectly sums up the movie's tone. It's less about raw power and more about why he chooses to use it. Gunn nails the idea that Superman's strength isn't what makes him great, it's his character, his heart, his wisdom. And credit where it's due. David Corenswet pulls off both Clark Kent and Superman beautifully. You can't just play one well and half-bake the other. His Clark is awkward, kind, and humble. And when he flips that switch into Superman mode, it's seamless, almost reminiscent of Christopher Reeve. Lois and Clark's chemistry is off the charts. The interview scene from the trailer, that's not just a moment, it was their actual audition tape. It had to pop, and it totally did. Their back and forth sets the tone for the entire film, and yes, Smallville fans, this one's got you covered. The show's spirit is all over the place, from tone to Easter eggs to emotional beats. It's like Smallville but with a blockbuster budget. Let's talk about some of the new additions. Krypto, for example, isn't just a cute sidekick, he's an MVP. He gets legit screen time and heart. If you're a dog person, you're going to love him. If you're not, well, this might test your limits. Jimmy Olsen also gets a standout portrayal, probably the best version we've seen in live action. And that Green Lantern you saw in the trailer? Yep, that's Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, complete with a bowl cut, by choice. Fillion himself insisted on it for comic book accuracy. And honestly, it works. He's goofy on purpose. That goofiness actually plays a crucial role in the film. There are more characters that I can cover in one sitting, Hawkgirl, Metamorpho, Mr. Terrific, all solid. Even if some feel more like background characters, Mr. Terrific in particular gets more screen time and is expected to show up again in Peacemaker Season 2. Yes, the movie is packed, but it doesn't buckle under its own weight like Iron Man 2 did. The world building is massive, but it stays focused on the story. It feels like a genuine launchpad for the new DCU without losing its grip on the story it's trying to tell. But with all that good stuff, let's get into what didn't quite land. The episode structure means that not every chapter hits the same. A few moments drag, and the tone, while intentionally light and family friendly, leans heavily into camp. If you didn't vibe with Smallville, this might not be your cup of tea. Then there are the trunks. Yeah, the classic red underwear is back, and I didn't mind it, but some fans will definitely have opinions. The movie aims to leave you hopeful. You walk out thinking, you know what, maybe the world isn't a total dumpster fire after all. That's the energy it wants you to carry, and honestly, it mostly succeeds. The score is another big win. It channels that John Williams magic and blends it with new themes from John Murphy. It feels timeless and nostalgic without being stuck in the past. Now, we need to talk about that ending and especially those post-credit scenes, because whether you caught it or not, this movie just dropped a ton of clues about where the entire DC universe is headed next. So major spoilers ahead. Alright, let's unpack this chaos. So here's something funny that's become almost a tradition in both DC and Marvel movies. Actually in blockbusters in general. The trailers spoil a lot, and in this case, DC didn't even wait until the movie dropped. They straight up released the mid-credit scene earlier this year as a full promo. But thankfully, that scene didn't ruin anything major. It's more of a sweet callback than a tease for future stories. It's actually a clever way to wrap up one of the movie's emotional threads rather than drop some multiversal bombshell. And yeah, it's always hilarious when you realize the big reveal was already in the trailer. Sony gets clowned for it constantly, but DC and Marvel, guilty as charged. Now jumping into the ending, Superman finally takes down Lex Luthor, but not without some help from the Daily Planet Dream Team, Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. The three of them exposes Lex's secret dealings with the Boravia government, who are planning to invade the neighboring country, Jaanpur. It turns out the entire foreign conflict was just a smokescreen Lex created to trick the US government into letting him kill Superman legally. The whole invasion was just a side hustle for Lex to secure the land rights in the newly merged territory. Classic Lex real estate scam vibes. Total throwback to Gene Hackman's Lex in the original Christopher Reeve Superman, where he tried to flood the West Coast to cash in on desert land. So yeah, same schema, just updated for 2025. Thanks to the Daily Planet's expose, Lex gets busted and locked up in Belle Reve, the same prison we saw in both Suicide Squad movies, but this time it's not Amanda Waller running the place. She's MIA. The new boss is Rick Flag Sr., played by Frank Grillo. He's now in charge of Argus, and yes, he'll be back in Peacemaker Season 2, dropping next month. Speaking of Peacemaker, John Cena's back, showing up in a hilarious cameo that fits perfectly with his conspiracy-loving persona. He pops up during the movie's subplot involving secret government ops and dimension-hopping madness. Oh, and things get weird. So there's this pocket dimension Lex was using as his own lawless playground, like a sci-fi Guantanamo Bay. It's where he kept political prisoners, ran dangerous experiments, and even cloned Superman to create Ultraman. Yep, Ultraman is officially in the mix now. And based on some not-so-subtle hints, I bet we'd see him again, probably re-emerging from that black hole as a version of Bizzaro. They kept describing him as stronger but dumber, which lines up perfectly with Bizzaro's comic book persona. Lex also made kaiju monsters in there, and get this, he ran a literal troll farm full of monkeys on typewriters, posting anti-Superman memes 24/7. That gag paid off beautifully when Krypto started chasing the monkeys around once they were freed. Total chaos. Now after all that madness, we get a little peace. Superman shares a sweet moment with Lois Lane, yes, the one from the trailers, where they float in the air and kiss. Perry White jokes about Lois dating Superman, and Jimmy Olsen casually drops that it's been going on for about 3 months. So yeah, the world's finally in on their relationship. Then we head to the Fortress of Solitude. Superman goes to heal up, and we see the Kryptonian robots have repaired themselves. Robot 4, voiced by Alan Tudyk, names himself Gary. And yes, he's actually credited as Gary in the end credits. That's when Supergirl shows up. Molly Alcock's Supergirl makes her grand entrance, and she's not thrilled that Gary moved the front door. But hey, it was a security thing. She's able to get in anyway because of her shared Kryptonian DNA. Also, she's drunk. Apparently, she's been partying on planets with red suns where she can actually get wasted without losing her powers. They're clearly painting her as a wild, chaotic force, very different from the Arrowverse version of Supergirl. She calls Clark a bitch and grabs Krypto, who he was only dog-sitting, and dips. Superman jokes to Gary that she's the reason Krypto's been misbehaving. This whole scene sets up her solo movie, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, coming up next year. That movie is going to be huge. It's based on Tom King's comic, where Kara celebrates her 21st birthday on a red sun planet, bar fights and all, and Jason Momoa will finally show up as Lobo in that film. No official images yet, but behind the scenes pics confirm it's happening. Expect a trailer by the end of this year. If you caught it, her suit matches Superman's, same House of L symbol, similar design, plus a slightly longer skirt straight from the Woman of Tomorrow comic. As the credits start to roll, Superman watches old home movies from his childhood at the fortress. It's a beautiful way to close things out, tying back to an earlier moment when he said he used to watch Jor-El and Lara's messages for comfort. Only now he's watching footage from his Earth parents, the Kents. It's a quiet emotional payoff that hits hard. Oh, and Jor-El, played by Bradley Cooper. James Gunn already hinted that Cooper might return for future DC projects as Jor-El. Then comes the mid-credit scene. Superman and Krypto sitting on the moon, looking down at Earth. It's a clear homage to All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison. You might remember I mentioned this earlier. So since it didn't really tease future events, it wasn't a spoiler, just a nice poetic way to close the arc. But the actual post-credit scene, that one's a comedic gem. We circle back to Mr. Terrific and Superman talking about the repaired pocket dimension. Superman casually mentions that things still look a little off, like some buildings are crooked, which completely sets off Mr. Terrific. He storms off, kicking rocks and cursing Superman, while Clark awkwardly admits he can be a jerk sometimes. Classic Superman humility moment. As the screen fades out, we hear a revamped version of John Williams' iconic Superman theme. The film uses echoes of their theme all throughout, but most of the soundtrack is new, composed by John Murphy, who also scored the Suicide Squad and Guardians of the Galaxy movies with James Gunn. James Gunn brought in a ton of his usual collaborators, so if you're a fan of his work, you probably spotted plenty of familiar faces. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think of the ending and those post-credit scenes? Did I miss any Easter eggs you caught? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.